This is National Chess Master R. Rats at chess.com, continuing my video series on the correspondence team match played between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. This was played on board 44 of 210 boards, and our man is rickpa, mid 1900 rating versus deepjingusejunior, rated mid 1800s. And this is the 150th video of this match. I promised my team that if they scored a win, or a win and a draw, or two wins, I would make a video of their games. I'm trying to inspire them to play good chess and get some commentary from me. I can't do this all the time, obviously, but went all out for this one because I really believe that correspondence chess is a great way to improve. It's part of my video lessons program. And those that are just new to this, you might want to go back and look at all of these videos, because correspondence chess is a terrific way to improve your game. I highly tout it in my video lessons program. It's something that worked for me. I played it way back in 1980 for a year, and that was in the days when we played by the postcard, and games took months, if not years, to finish. And 1 year of doing this and analyzing all my positions and looking at my openings, I was able to climb from 2,000 to 2,200 in 3 months. And then I got back into it in 1986 because I was unable to play much competitive chess, and I wanted to play stronger masters, so I played in the old international tournaments with International Correspondence Chess Federation by postcard, and twice qualified into the World Correspondence Chess Championship, and I didn't go any farther than my initial qualification, but I certainly learned a lot about chess playing a lot of 23, 24, 2,500 strength players. What happened, though, when the internet came along, internet chess had already been out for a while, and it exposed correspondence chess to a whole new breed of players that didn't really understand how to play it. It's not something that's a substitute for over the board, where if your opponent happens to be online, you sit and trade a few moves every day with. It's not something you play 500 games with and sit there and take seconds on the move. It's something you take several hours on a move. It's something you research and learn your openings. And as this whole match shows, a lot of players, they're not bothering to research the openings because they're playing some really poor lines and missing their chance to learn about chess. And correspondence chess is a great way to improve your play, because even if you're, say, 1,400 strength, and it'd probably be pretty easy to get an 1,800 rating if you take your time. And what's the advantage of having an 1,800 rating if you're only 1,400 strength? Well, correspondence ratings are a little different than over-the-board ratings, but when you get an 1,800 rating, if you're playing in team matches, you tend to get to play higher-rated players. And this is how you improve your game, by playing to higher-rated players. Doesn't matter if you lose these games, you're getting the competition. Losing is part of chess. No matter how good you are, there's always a bigger fish. And we learn by not only playing and studying and analyzing, but by competing against players that are throwing these good moves at us. Okay, so let's look at this one and see what happens. And Black is playing the so-called modern defense. Come on, move, please. There it goes. Sometimes this thing gives me lag, and all of a sudden 3 moves appear instantaneously. We'll try to avoid that. I believe White's third move is not accurate, although at first glance it doesn't seem anything wrong with it at all. But there is a general rule to develop your knights before bishops, and it's possible that White has a long-range plan. White's wanting to play the queen up to d2, bring the knight out, castle queenside, and then launch an attack against the white king. Well, that's a long way off. But Black is able to immediately exploit this bishop e3 move with a little counterpunch. And here it comes, c5, counterattacking the center from the wing. Okay, so this pawn is pinned. It can't go by. Come on, can't take or can't go by because, whoops, b2 hangs. So White plays c3, and then Black makes an exchange, and then Black throws d5 at. And I'm going to come back and talk about these in just a moment. And White elects to push e5. At this point, white has pretty much thrown away his advantage of the first move. The black position is not challenged really in any way, shape, or form. And the game becomes an equal opportunity for both players to show their stuff and wait for one to make a mistake, which will enable one side to win. You can't win a game of chess unless someone makes a mistake. But we'll talk more about why this game is pretty much even with balanced chances and no advantage of the first move in a moment. But let me go back and let's look at a couple things what white could have done differently here. Okay, I was talking about knights before bishops. Well, we have two knights to choose from. Let's look at them both. Okay. Oh, come on, show me the other arrow. Thank you. Now erase that one. Okay, let's try this knight. One of the advantages of moving this knight out is that it does stop d5. So black needs to come up with another move here. Okay, he could play d6, but this allows white to just continue, bring out his other knight, find a home for the bishop, somewhere along this diagonal, maybe even e2 is fine, and just castle and use the books, try to find variations that are good, that you like the way they play out. In other words, is lead type of middle game that you feel comfortable with, and just use the books to guide you. Okay, and let's back this knight up. Oh, you could bring out the other knight. This gets you that much closer to castling. And should black now opt for a d5, this pawn can be taken, and if the queen comes out and recaptures, there's tempos to be had on the queen. So this pretty much stops a d5 push by black that is able to get in the real game. Now you might ask, well, what about c5? Okay, well, fine. Let him play c5. Now you can go into a Sicilian defense. We can transpose right into it if we want, or if you're ambitious, you could just push by and continue on with there. But here to play a Sicilian defense, just develop a piece, knight c3, maybe bishop e2, maybe bishop c4, and we'll be in a Sicilian probably accelerated dragon, and we can once again follow the books. And white will have ample opportunities to find variations that will allow him to at least preserve the advantage of his first move. Okay, so knights before bishops is just a good general rule. So you might ask, what about taking this pawn? Well, there are some lines where you can take this pawn, but you're opening up the diagonal for the bishop. Why do that? Black can regain this pawn easily enough in time. It's better to just develop a piece and not bother capturing on c5. But by keeping the bishop on c1, you don't run into this little tactic. So let's get back to what actually happened in the game. Okay, we had c3. We'll just go through these moves again. Or c5, c3, and then now d5 is able to be played. Okay, well, one of the drawbacks with pushing by with e5 is that the center is now locked, and anytime you advance a pawn, you weaken a square. In this case, white has weakened f5. Black now has control of that square, and he's going to start utilizing it in just a moment. But before we push e5, let's just consider one other alternative. I always say, if you're not sure what to do, develop a piece. Okay, well, knight c3 protects the pawn and develops a piece. Now, black does have the option. We don't know what he's going to do. Black does have the option of taking, and white has to play with an isolated queen pawn. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. The possessor of the isolated queen pawn always has a lot of piece activity, and the more pieces you keep on the board, the more likely you are to preserve some advantage or find a way to get an advantage with it. But there's one little drawback here, and that's this bishop appears to be misplaced. It's not on a very active diagonal, and it can't really move right away because d4 would hang. But one thing I always say, if you're not sure what to do, develop a piece. Develop a piece, don't move a pawn. Whoops. So now we get e5 in, and now black plays knight h6. It's the only safe square for the knight to go, right? But now we see the fact that black is controlling this f5 square, and that makes a little bit of a difference. Now white plays an bishop f4, I mean, it looks great. Hey, look, I got this great pawn center. And one thing about chess, you want to attack in the direction your pawn chain points. That indicates that you do want to play f5. But look what it's done to this bishop. This bishop has no scope, and it's White's only developed piece. After 7 moves, White has made 6 pawn moves and 1 piece move. It's not a good ratio. Most of White's army is still back on its original square, and Black improves the position of his knight with a gain of tempo, kicks it back, and suddenly, look, Black has 3 minor pieces developed, White has none. And White should be thinking about castling and follow the rule, knights before bishops, and see what happens, but he brings the bishop out at b5. I think it's just a little early to commit that. It could go to e2 or d3, but let's wait a move and then decide where we want to go. Okay? And because White's starting to catch up in development, but Black's still slightly ahead. As a matter of fact, Black is a tempo and a half ahead in development. How do we determine that? Well, it's real easy. You can do it anytime during one of your games. Both sides have 3 minor pieces developed, right? Here they are. And Black is castled, White hasn't. And it's Black's move. So if Black develops a piece, bring the bishop out to 1 of 2 squares or develop the queen, then Black is 2 tempos ahead. But then it's White's turn to develop something. So it averages out a tempo and a half. So Black develops his queen and White develops his knight. And now we can see that why the bishop on b5 was misplaced here, and it was just a little premature. Black uncorks a little tactic, a6, and here comes the tactic. Now if the bishop retreats, b2 falls. So White captures on c6, but now b2 falls anyway, gaining a tempo on the knight on c6. And the net result of all this is that Black is able to escape with the attack on his queen with a check, exchange queens, and simply bag a pawn. So now at the price of 1 tempo in development, Black has won a pawn. See, Black has 2 minor pieces developed, now White has 3. Black is castled, White hasn't. Black is only a half a tempo ahead, but he's bagged a pawn, and that makes a big difference. And from this point on, White really can't generate anything. Black just carefully, slowly covers his weak spots, and his bishop on c8 is not mobile at all. The pawn on c6, the pawn ahead, is a backward pawn on the open file, but White's not poised to assault it. And because of this inactive bishop on f2, behind all these pawns, this bishop is pretty useless. The only good outpost for Black is to try to plant, or White is to try to plant a knight on c5, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But Black is just busily chipping away at the White pawn center. Now he gets the knight in on c5, and to some degree you might say this is the wrong strategy to remove that White pawn center, because that'll activate the Black bishop. But it actually works out quite nicely, because White can't exploit it. For instance, if he takes on g5, Black is going to take on e5, and the entire White pawn center vanishes. So White feels obligated to play g3, and now Black has opened up a line that he would like to use. So Black's increasing the mobility of his pieces here. He's also isolated this pawn to some degree. He can later be attacked, and can't be guarded by a pawn anymore. There it is. So attacking a pawn, White has to do a little remaneuvering, and here I think Black just missed a good move. Take here. The point is that the pawn is pinned and he can't take back this way. Let's take a look at it. Pawn takes, pawn takes. Okay, now suddenly Black has 2 connected passed pawns, and but it does activate this bishop. Sometimes we don't want to make moves which improve the position of our opponent's pieces. It's just an alternative line. But what black does is just playing it slowly playing it methodically, and giving white no chance. This opens up. This brings the king closer to the center. In case he needs to guard these pawns later, he's there ready. Opens up the G file. If anything could be generated there, it's not a bad move at all. But I was thinking maybe the two protected pawns looked awful juicy. But then again, black has nothing to fear here. White does. Now opening up a new diagonal for the bishop, and white possibly moved too quick. See, we don't know how long the players are taking on their moves. A lot of people are simply moving too fast. I mean, when this match started back in June, there were games being over in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. I was just making videos like crazy. And I have an article written. If you did a little research, you could find it. The number one reason people lose chess games is because they move too fast. And, certainly in correspondence chess, this is quite true, because white loses a tempo. Had he really taken his time, he would have anticipated black's move. Black just sets up a pin, and then the rook has to meekly retreat. And I like to do a little comparison here. When somebody wastes a move like this, let's look back at this position. It's white to play. Let's see. When white plays rook b6, he says rook b6. He's basically saying, White's basically in effect saying this: black, it's my move, but I don't want to move. I'll make a deal with you. I won't move this time, as long as your move is bishop a6. Okay, so watch what happens. Here we have rook b6. The bishop does go to a6, and rook b3. So I'll give you the move here. I'll play rook b3. Let me say the better way. I'll play rook b3 and give you two moves here, as long as one of them is bishop a6. Because here it's white to play. Now, let's click to when black plays bishop a6. Here's the deal made. See, rook went to b3, the bishop went to a6, and now it's black's turn. In effect, you've given him a free move. So this happens anytime you move something one square and then put it back, or put it back somewhere else. Okay, so black just uses these. He's doing two moves. Click it once, it moves twice. Black just uses the extra tempo. It did it again. Come on, one at a time, please. All right, there we go. Black uses the extra tempo to push his pawn, limit the rook's mobility. Now it's backing things up. Wonderful. Okay. And now black has control of the B file, something white was on just a little while ago, being ambitious on his rook to b6. But black has other plans. He's undermined the defense of the pawn on f4, and now happily collects it. So black has won 2 pawns. And what has white demonstrated? Only thing he's demonstrated is he has a lost position. Now, no hurry to take that pawn. Black decides he's going to take it back with the bishop and get that bishop to a very nice diagonal. And there it is. Now, all kinds of pressure on d4. Black's 2 pawns up. I mean, he's got a couple of backward pawns, but white hasn't demonstrated anything. He got the knight into c5, and it didn't stay. I'll take a look at one thing I meant to say. We'll come back to that when this game concludes. But white's got a little space here, but he's simply down 2 pawns with no real hope. Tempo on the bishop saves that. Hey, let's trade rooks. Let's block off the file. White tries to put pressure on the pawn on c6, but black has it covered, and off come a set of rooks. The more exchanges that come along, the better it is for black. And now black goes on the b file again. a3 puts the pawn on a weak square. It was probably a bad move. It opens up b3 for black, which we'll see will be effective right away. And check, forcing the bishop to take. Now the rook tries to get active, but hey, thanks for the b3 square. Now he has to go over to a2, and now the two passed pawns that I was talking about earlier, black found a way to get him anyway. They're just starting to march up the board, and nothing white can do. He's shuffling his king back, and at this point, white decided he wouldn't even wait for black's reply. It's clearly lost. This pawn will just come up, and the rook will come into b2, and the king will penetrate, and the pawn will come up again. You get the idea. Okay, so let's back it up when white first got a knight to c5. I mean, the natural response is let's back it up with another knight. But remember, black was counterattacking that white center. Okay, so let's see if it was ever feasible. What might have happened? See, there's pressure on f4. So maybe white should try bishop e1 here. Although that bishop certainly doesn't. Well, he can't even do that. d4 falls. So white was never able to get a knight into back up his knight outpost on c5. Okay, let's reset the board. I'll load up the other game, and we'll see what happens here. Flip the board. Okay, so, well, double king pawn opening. Let's go forward. And this one actually followed book for a long time. I was kind of surprised the first time I looked through it, and then I checked it on the databases. White opts not to play the sharp molar lines with the clower pianamiso lines, I guess they call it. And I think the best move for black is to play d6. A6, I would look at this and say horrible move. In my playlist, How to Play the Openings, the fourth video, really criticizes these rook pawn moves. It's something I discovered. This match is full of them. There's a link to the team match, and in the description, and to the video where I criticize the rook pawns. And I've been posting all the games that feature these rook pawn moves, and I'm not even close to done yet. I haven't a chance to get back in there and work on it some more, but all the videos are made, and there's a few games still remaining that feature these rook pawn moves. In essence, probably what happened, how these things became popular, is players ran into pins on their knights and knight forks when the knight's coming in like this and chopping a fork on one of these squares. Players were running into that a lot, and the only way they could figure to stop that was to push their rook pawns up to keep the bishops and knights out. But these are terrible moves. They weaken your position, don't help your development, and so forth. It's all given in that topic. But strategically, I think a6 is wrong, and I'll show you why, and then we'll come back and watch the game. See, there's a plan that both sides can implement in this position, in this type of symmetrical position. White or black can both do it. I think the better move is d6, as I was saying. Now, here's something I show my students. Bishop e3. Now, the best move is to play bishop b6. But when you play a6, bishop b6 is not as feasible as it was, because if white exchanges, you don't get the half-open a file. Instead, you're capturing away from the center. So bishop b6 would be the best move, but you never know what your opponent's going to do. Sometimes they take, and this plays right into white's hands. A lot of people are unwilling to take these double pawns, but when you see the strategy behind this, it's quite a remarkable thing that you can implement in your own games. See, these double pawns are very strong. They are covering a lot of squares. And here's how the game should continue. Or could continue, I should say. Let me show you the strategy. Okay, black castles, white castles. Now, what are we going to do? We always develop a piece. Let's just, when I analyze, I develop pieces. So maybe I'm not making the best moves, but this is how I start. Now, it's important. What white wants to do is get a knight to f5, but you can't do it right now. And I have one student I'm working with, and I've gone over with her 100 times, but she's just having a little trouble with it. You run into this trick. Whoops! And discovery on this knight, and you're losing your pawn advantage. So what you have to do is stop and play queen e1 first. Okay, let's develop another piece. We're just putting it here just so I can illustrate the purpose. And now white is primed to get a knight into f5, and potential mating threats are coming, and you have a half open f file to play with. It's a nice plan for white. Of course, this isn't forced, but this is again how you analyze and you come up with a strategy. And if black stops it with g6, stops the knight from coming in, well, he's weakened the f6 square. White can get some counterplay on that square, and possibly even a knight sacrifice at the right time. Pin the pawn and throw the knight in there. Anything is possible. Here, I'll just show you an example. Bring this here, and now maybe we play queen here, attack the knight. Say he guards it. Doesn't have to, but I'm just saying. Now we throw this in, and look, there's a threat. Well, black can cover it here, but we can see the knight's trying to come in there, but we're playing for black to keep it out. So let's back the king up just for the fun of it. Whoops, not to there. Come on, chess.com, cooperate. There you go. Maybe we could still do it in some lines. Or look, we're back to this. See, now now you got to come back. Whee! This is no fun for black. So this is a kind of active strategy that's possible simply because you understand which way to take back or to set this up and take back with the pawn. And black probably has resources, but it's always an even game until somebody makes a mistake. Okay, so that being said, and I did mention it's something that's possible for both sides of the board. Anyway, black plays a6, and white doesn't play bishop e3. Okay, white plays bishop b3, attempting to preserve his bishop. Well, if black wants it that bad, let him have it. Okay, I can show you a better idea. Aside from bishop e3. Okay, if black wants that, let him have it. Okay. Well, you can't play a knight. Well, you could play it here, I guess. b4 is met by knight takes, but now white can reinforce this bishop, and if black is so insistent on getting the bishop pair, look what's happened. This is Nimcevich's old rule pointed out in my system. Don't make exchanges which improve or develop your opponent's pieces. Let him make exchanges which develop yours. Look at how that white knight jumped into play. And this is done simply by reinforcing your pieces so that one piece can recapture a piece and take its place. So white's really improved his position slightly. Here he's got his knight up 2 tempos and he's castled. Yeah, it cost him a bishop, but one thing I talk about people that are aiming for the bishop pair. The classic game is Stoltz-Kashtan, The Hague 1928, where Kashtan proved why the bishop beats the knight in a symmetrical pawn ending. How many times did you win a game, bishop versus knight versus along the plans that Isaac Kashtan showed us way back when? And most people say never. Okay, fine. Well, let's compare this position. Look at how white's development is. We'll do this flip flop here. We find the right spot on the PGN. Okay, here we go. See, what's happened? The king is still uncastled. This knight is still back at home. But if you play my line, let's look at it again. Look, and then also let's look at what black changes in black's position. The only thing that changes in black's position is the knight on c6 will vanish. Watch. See? So development. These are the kind of things that make all the difference in a game of chess. Okay. I talk to my students that I'm teaching all the time. We've come up with a new analogy. We say, think about a 100-meter race against an equal opponent. How would you like to move your starting block ahead 10 meters or 20 meters? Or how would you like to have it backed up 10 or 20 meters? Well, in effect, that's what we've just done here. We've moved our starting block ahead 10 meters because our pieces are that much more into play. Now, granted, I'm just noticing, and I always hang things when I analyze, but this pawn has been hanging for a while, but that doesn't matter. I'm illustrating a point. The point is, look if you do your exchanges right and let your opponent exchange and bring your pieces out, it will give you that head start. I mean, I look back at games I played 40 years ago when I was rated in the 1700s, where I couldn't get anything going against equal players, and eventually I'd even lose these games. And I go very frustrating. I couldn't get anything. And I go back and I look at them and I see all these times I didn't do some of these principles. I played a move like Bishop B3 instead of reinforcing and allowing my opponent to make exchanges which brought my pieces out. Now, if I play a 1700, it's usually no contest. They're going to make these kind of moves. I'll get my pieces going, and eventually they're going to get overwhelmed because I'll have a better position, and the mistakes start coming. And the mistakes will come easier when you have a stronger position. They won't come as easy when you have a very equal position. Your opponent can play like a grandmaster against you. So these are some of the big differences that you want to look for when you're playing your chess games. Okay, let's go back to what happened. Where are we? Let's see. All this stuff gets jumbled up in the PGN when you get all these lines. Okay, he played Bishop B3. And again, let's just do the comparison. Look how all that disappears is Black's knight. But watch how far back White's position goes. See? It's quite a big difference. Okay, so Bishop B3, it's perfectly playable, and it's still book. Does that mean book? It's because it's been played before, it's the best line? Not necessarily. If you're comfortable with this position as White, you're doing fine. Okay, so Black castles, White castles, and here comes another one of those moves that it just weakens the Black position. It's book. It's surprising, but it's not necessary. It's not a position where White can pin the knight and then bring this knight into d5. Because why? This is why, right here. This pawn's in the way of the knight. So it would have been better for Black to have developed a piece, or prepared to develop with d6. And here, Black's just set his marker, his starting block back 5 yards. And here, White is, still not following my suggestion. Bring the bishop out. Try for this position. It's still possible. And now it's even more potent because Black has weakened his pawn structure. A knight into f5, g6 may not be possible because you could grab it. Grab that pawn on h6. All potential sacrifices abound when the pawn structure is like this. Bishop e3 is a first-class move here. All right, anyway, knight bd2, d6. And now White's doing the same thing. This is a horrible move. But you know what? It's still book. Why not work on your development? Okay, what's wrong with developing pieces? You can improve the position of this knight, swing the knight around, get into e3, eyeballing f5. This doesn't help White's development. Black isn't doing anything with this pin. Okay, he can't bring a knight in here. This pawn was stopping the White knight from getting to d5, and this pawn is stopping the Black knight from getting to d4. Okay, move on. Now at least White doesn't stop and take care and allow Black to do exactly what I was showing that White could do. Okay, this would be a horrible mistake. Take, and let's develop a piece. Okay, we're going to develop something. Let's put the rook here so we can get the knight over to f1. Well, guess what? We can't play knight h5 because of this same trick. Knight takes here. So we stop. We put the queen on e8. And now, there we get to put the knight on f4. And White develops a piece. And there you have it. So Black is now doing a lot of the strategies that I was having White do. Okay? So White didn't fall into it, but you never know. Sometimes they're going to take. And to take that is a mistake because it gives your opponent active play. So that's one thing about this double king pawn if you're playing it. This is something to strive for. You'd be surprised what could happen. Okay, so let's back it up. But instead of White taking, once again, let's follow the rule of development. Why retreat it? Let's develop a rook, okay? Since we wasted this move here, we're stopping knight g4. If Black takes, hey, look, we've developed the queen. See? Maybe we don't want the queen there, but we've developed it. Okay. Now follow the principle of exchanges, and you'll give yourself much better chances to win. They're certainly not winning moves, but they're moves that will allow you to improve the position of your pieces, and that's all it takes sometimes. Okay, so white doesn't uh, continue his development. He saves his bishop. Whoops, wrong one. Find it here. Now and again, guess what? It's still a book move. Somebody's played it before. Maybe the grandmasters are playing it because they can sit there and play these long, slow, deliberate games against each other and try for an advantage in the ending. Well, does that mean that's right for you? It's a good question. The grandmaster's playing these things for a reason. You guys need to get your pieces going so you can learn to use them. Okay. And now Black just lost a tempo with his queen, but hey, you know what? Maybe there's potential sacrifice down here. Let's move forward. And that potential sacrifice is only there because white is weak in his pawn structure. You would not believe how many times that sacrifice has come up among the games of my students. It has. Whoops, that's just clicking too fast. Okay. Or it's moving too fast. Now white finds the right strategy, but now taking with the f pawn isn't as potent because why? Because white's taken his rook off the f file. So this way, the knight's position to take it. The knight is trying to get into f5. So white's finding a way to get it done. It's a level game, and that's what we have here: a level position. And now we have a pawn structure similar to what we saw in the last game with colors reversed. But now, at least black is trying for the f4 square, and white's trying for the f5 square. So we're getting this right, but let's see how it progresses. Now we can play knight h4 because there's no discovery against that knight. And both sides are doing their best to cover those squares. And look at that. They both got a knight entrenched. So equal chances. These pawns are weak. And black plays to undermine the center. Now the f file is opening up, and what's the target on the f file? This queen. And white reinforces his knight. Black doubles. And here both sides commit an error. The game is thrown away theoretically by both sides. White makes a losing move and black doesn't find it, and in turn replies with a losing move. Now you'd be surprised that a move like h4 would be a losing move, but remember this rule: when you move a pawn, don't not only think of what it can do, but what it can't do. And what that pawn can no longer do is secure g4. So black to play is going to win if he plays h5. Because this will cause a fatal undermining of this knight on g4, and you can't retreat it because of a little tactic. Whoops! There goes the queen. Okay. So you can't take here. Well, you could, but let's see. Black's move is. Let's see. I'm trying to remember this. I think you just take the knight, and let's see. I went over this at great length, and I can't remember it, but I'll figure it out. Let's see. Pawn takes. Check. Let's see. Now, where's the king going to go? If you go to h1, you get it pinned. If you go here, looks like black is getting this tremendous attack here. Hello, h3. Oh, wait. Yeah. Stop and take this first. But this is going to deflect the white queen. I mean, there's several ways to do it, as I recall. One thing about analysis, you have time, you can sit down, you can work these things out. But undermining the knight on f5 pretty much wins by force for black. I'm sure there's other ways. I know there's other ways to do it. Let's see. So what else can white do here? And you know, if it's let's burn a move for white to make it black's move, well, suddenly this pawn gets taken, and now this knight is undermined. So if you push the pawn, the rook can just take it, and that's a decisive advantage for black. I'll show you. Push. Oh wait, I can't push. Just because I played here. If you push, rook takes, knight takes, bishop takes, and black has won 2 minor pieces for the rook, right? And how do you want to take queen, rook? That probably doesn't matter. Black is clearly much better off here. Okay, so let's back it up. The other line was to take here, and let's see. You can always take this guy. Let's see, was this one of the lines? Let's see now. You have your choice of knights. If you take this knight, let's see, was this the move? Maybe that wasn't the move. I'm just a little frustrated. I work so hard on these, and then I forget the obvious. If you watch my videos, I make one move mistakes all the time. I forget what I'm doing, but in the long run, I'm going to guide you correctly. I don't sit here and aim to make a perfect video. I mean, I have flaws in them. How do we lose games? We make mistakes. If you spot a flaw I made, good job. A lot of commentators are out there trying to make sure they put out 100% perfect product because they feel that if they make a mistake in their video analysis or their published analysis, that some duffer is going to come along and say, look at this, Grandmaster Schützenpotzer made this horrible move in his analysis, and the duffer has his 15 minutes of fame, and nobody trusts Grandmaster Schützenpotzer. Trust me, I'll mess things up, but I'll guide you right more often than not. Well, we can always just take this, and let's see. White can win his piece, but black can take. Now let's see. Does this undermine the knight on f4? I'm sorry, the knight on g6, or does he drop something? Let's see. This is gonna win for white. Well, let's solve this. Okay, now let's see. Black has lost the exchange. You have to take this. Okay, so this isn't right. I know h5 wins for black. Because I worked it out. Okay, let's see. So take. Let's go ahead and try taking this way. Now this has a threat of bringing this in. Now let's see. If you take this knight, okay, what can black do? Well, black can throw his Zwischenzug at you. Hello. Well, how about a check? Okay. And yeah, this will work. The king comes, let's put him on h2. And now let's go ahead and gobble this bishop. Now we've got a discovery on this queen, right? And you don't have time to play knight takes. Yeah, this does it. See? It's that simple. Okay. So black misses this chance to win. And instead black plays, don't know how much time he analyzed his combination, but he comes up with a different idea. Black takes on h4. And white bites. White grabs the knight on f4. And now black counts on getting his piece back. But there's a little flaw in the plan. Okay, stop and take with check. And now the knight just simply comes back. And black takes it. And white plays g5. And that's the fly in the ointment. This attacks the rook and uncovers an attack on the knight on h4. But hey, that's fine. Bring the knight back. Attack the queen. But there's one more. Ooh, it's going too fast again. Bring the knight back. Attack the queen, but there's a check. And the black king gets out of check, and white collects a rook. So the game went from a win to a loss for black. Black was winning. And now he's down a whole rook, and the rest of the game really doesn't need much comment because black's just down too much material, and black plays on, but it doesn't matter. It's all over but the shouting, and more pieces come off, and black's just a rook down. Don't know why he doesn't resign. Anyway, he couldn't. If he takes this, he just takes this and pinning on that, forcing more stuff off. So white's just having his way here. Hey, let's trade some more pieces, except I'll win the exchange when I do it. Now white is ahead, the exchange and a rook, and going for more. And here's a pin, kind of a, and here I see the pin realized. Okay, so now white is going to go up 2 rooks and black resigned. So one of the things about correspondence chess that attracted me to it was, I mean, there'd be times you'd play an over-the-board game and you'd have a winning position, maybe because of the clock or because of your laziness or blindness or whatever. Suddenly I would find myself not winning a winning game. Well, correspondence chess, if I got a winning game, I made sure that I took time and won it. Today the people won't do it. You can use that to your advantage. You use it to your advantage to develop a good rating, so you play good competition. Okay. So anyway, I thank everyone for their time. This match has only 12 games left on it. There's 100, as I said, there's 150 videos. There'll be some more videos coming. We're waiting for more results to come in. I don't make the video until someone has finished both of their games, so that way that's easy to keep track, but there will be more coming up as they come up. And I thank you so much for your time. Feel free to look at all my other playlists, and you're going to learn a lot about chess from me for free. All right, thanks again. Take care.